Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Property Focus, your window into the world of architecture, building construction and real estate. We dedicate today's show to the over 20 young lives that have been lost in the schools in the recent past at Precious Talent School and Kakamega Primary. No child, and I mean no child, should lose their life in school. Learning environments should be safe spaces and no parent at all should lose their child, not to mention through a collapsing building in a place entrusted with capable administrators. Now, while authorities continue to probe these cases, we at Property Focus will look into the ways school proprietors are ensuring that their young ones are learning in safe spaces. We'll be finding out more about how you can prevent these incidences in future as well. Our guest, Emma Miloyo, also Kyoto School co-founding director, will be taking us through the relationship between design and learning spaces, as well as key design parameters for academic facilities, particularly for elementary learners. We'll also be talking to Kyoto School principal, who will help us understand the psychology of a child and how that impacts their interactions and reactions to danger. As you may have guessed it already, we are at Kyoto School Kindergarten Campus along Lenana Road, where a case in point is going to be, and we'll be having our conversations. In line with the safety in schools, we have building materials experts who will give us more insight on the suitable flooring for schools. You're watching Property Focus, your window into the world of architecture, building construction and real estate. I'm Peter Ngigi and welcome to the show. In most cases, schools are delightful destinations, and especially for elementary learners. Their young, curious minds look forward to the fascinating experience of learning new vocabulary and playing with friends. Kyoto School is one such fine example amongst very many others. Let's hear more about it from the founding directors, and then the principal will tell us about children's welfare in school. Welcome to Property Focus. Emma, how are you doing?
I'm very good.
Now, we're going to get into the design and learning spaces of Kyoto School, but as the director, tell us about Kyoto School, anything in general.
Yes. Well, Kyoto School was founded in 2014. It's about 7 years old. We cater to children from 2 years up to 10 years. And we see ourselves really as a school that offers a local curriculum, but to an international standard, very aware of the fact that we're now in a global village in a sense, so our children need to be exposed. We're talking about a 21st century child, so our learning and our education must respond to the 21st century child. And I think at Kyoto, that's what really drives us in everything that we do. But more and over and above that we're, having children who are in a sense wholesome, have wholesome learning, and it's no longer about just educating the mind. You must educate the heart. You must educate someone's soul in a sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you guys start?
We started in 2014. Yes.
Oh, it's been running quite well. You've got about 3 campuses.
4 actually
4
now.
campuses.
Yes.
Okay.
1 in Karen.
Okay.
And 3 here in Kilimani.
So tell us about the key design features that you incorporated in all these campuses.
Yes. Well, like I said earlier, that Kyoto School is based in Kilimani, has 3 campuses in Kilimani, and also 1 in Karen. The interesting thing that we find ourselves as a school in Kilimani is that space is a problem. Space is a problem in Kilimani. You may not, there's a challenge in terms of increase in terms of densification and very little space, as it were. So what we found very key for us, even in the Kilimani campuses, is to make the very best use of every space you have, and ensuring that number one, even with the space you have, that there's space for play. So play is fundamental in all that. In Karen, of course, we've got larger grounds in the sense of the and trees. Yeah, but something interesting also in Kilimani is so in all the campuses, very fundamental is the colors in terms of and the experience that the child has even in the classroom. So ensuring your furniture, all that just makes a child love school in the sense of what they see and what even they sit on, very fundamental. So that something that we've made sure we've maintained in all the campuses. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. We'll hear from you in just a bit on an architectural point of view. Up next, we've got the head of school, Miss Jenny. Let's hear what she has to say. Welcome to Property Focus, Miss Jenny.
Thank you, Peter. It's good for you to be here.
Excellent.
Karibu sana Kyoto School.
Asante sana. So tell us about the psychology of a child and how the spaces actually influence this.
Well, I think child psychology has a lot to do with the subconscious.
Yes.
And so how children relate with others, their environment, and generally how their whole sense of being. So in a nutshell, without going into it too deep, that's how it is with children.
Okay. As a head teacher, how do you ensure that these children feel safe around you, around your teachers? What measures have you taken in place?
Okay, Peter, I should mention that at Kyoto School we have very young children from the age of 2, and so we've taken measures to contain them so that they don't wander off into unsafe places. So you find that everyone is involved to ensure that the children are kept in a manner where teachers know where each child is, and therefore accounting for their whereabouts and knowing whether they're doing dangerous things or not. So I think for me is to ensure that every teacher understands where their children are at all times and that they're looking after them.
So from your experience as a head teacher, what do you consider being an ideal learning environment?
Okay, I think an ideal learning environment is one that allows children to have freedom of movement, because they need that as they're growing. And also with freedom of movement means they have space, they're not crowded in one particular or a given area. And also make the environment stimulating, like have toys, have educational toys, have games going that are structured or unstructured, have activities that enhance and stimulate their learning, and be able to be aesthetically pleasing. Children appreciate beauty, so you've mentioned about having our trees intact and flowers and all that, that really contributes to children's learning. And so that's my ideal learning environment.
Now, in line with our conversation on safety, the incidences that occurred at Precious Talent and Kakamega High School, what are your concerns or what are your remarks on this?
Wow, Peter, as a school, we are so, we stand in solidarity that accidents happen, and nobody wants a tragedy to happen in their school. So our hearts go out to those people who ran those schools and also to the victims, people who lost their children. It must be horrendous, and we cannot even begin to imagine what anyone in those schools went through. And so we feel very sorry for the situation, and that is why we try our best to do what we can to ensure that children are safe, even though we know that tragedies are tragedies and accidents are accidents.
Well, thank you very much. Delighted to have had you on the show.
Thank you, Peter.
I'm 10 years old, just in case. I'm going to register for this amazing institution.
Karibu sana, Peter.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a short break, but when we're back, we're going to be having a chat with architect Emma Miloyo about design and spaces and the relationship between the two here at Kyoto School. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Property Focus, and I'm back with architect Emma. Now, before we get into the conversation, I'll tell you that architect Emma is very passionate about children empowerment, which, as you may have picked from our chat earlier, which is why she started Kyoto School. She aspires that every child in Kenya is not only getting a good education, but has an ample space to play and nurture their talents. Her advocacy for children is evident in her career, with most of her projects taking root in academic institutions. Let's hear more, architect Emma. Now, tell us about the relationship as an architect, of course, between space and learning.
Yes. So space has an impact on everything. Space where you sleep, where you work, and where you learn certainly has an impact on, and more so, in fact, in terms of in-school environments. It does impact on learning. It does impact on how the children are happy, the amount of lighting that's coming in, ventilation, all that has an impact on performance for adults and even for children in terms of learning.
As well.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is lacking in the development of learning institutions?
I think we have to infuse more play and more opportunity for children to learn on their own. So traditionally, maybe borrowing from the education system we borrowed from the British, were very, very structured. But the world is moving away from very structured learning to more collaboration, more discussion, more learning on your own, and opportunities for children to discover. So we must move away from learning just being about a building and the four walls you're in, to bringing classrooms out, to creating and disrupting what a classroom should look like. So it should no longer be one teacher at the front and the children listening to teacher. It should be more about nodes of collaborative learning, of asking questions, and of inquiry.
Excellent. So what key considerations should one have whenever incorporating or building a learning institution?
I think first and foremost is safety, and it's been quite unfortunate what has happened in the last 6 months or so with the Precious Talent school collapse and the Kakamega incident and tragedy that happened. It's really, really sad, because if a country cannot take care of its youngest and its future generation, it's really sad. So first and foremost is safety in terms of the building structure itself. So the sad thing about, for example, Precious Talent, the building was the one that collapsed. Then there is the design element in terms of how the school is laid out. What are the fire exit rules, escape routes, assembly points, and now more and more, especially in the West, it's not only about external, intruders in a sense, but sometimes even internal threats. So there's a lot to think about, and in terms of even training the children in a scenario like this is what you do. These are the escape routes. So safety first and foremost. Even before I learn, I must be safe in where I am. So safety, also in terms of lighting, in terms of ventilation, and just ensuring the spaces are well aerated, but also now in terms of how the school is laid out. I think it's very important. Schools are communities, so in terms of ensuring, in a sense, and how that you've laid out the school, that it nurtures that sense of community, that what I was talking about earlier, that people interact with each other. There's opportunities for children to collaborate, to play, because play is very fundamental. So how are you bringing the opportunities to play, for playing for children in your school setup? So very important to think about that. But the school must also look good. If I'm going to like going to a place, can the colors be vibrant in the classrooms? That's very fundamental as well, especially in the younger age. Also worth noting, even in terms of just we're becoming more and more constrained in terms of space, but ensuring the younger children don't have to climb a lot of stairs, and if they're closer to the ground, the better for them. Less risk in terms of injuries and falls and the like.
So where does the buck stop where safety is concerned?
I think first and foremost, it's our shared responsibility. If you see something, say something. If you don't think a space where you're taking your child to is good, speak up. But I fundamentally think government's responsibility is to protect the innocent citizens. Not everybody may have the knowledge or even the opportunity to speak out, or even the option to take their children to the schools they want. So, or they would, rather take their children to. So I think at the end of the day, government must intervene. Population is increasing. We're not having as many schools as public schools as we had. So private sector has come in to sort of play that role that government in the past used to fulfill entirely. So they must work hand in hand with private schools and proprietors to ensure the safety of children, both in public and private schools. So I think the challenges of safety have not only been in the private sector case of Precious Talent, but also in some of the public schools. As much as they had the infrastructure and they have the space, in terms of maintaining those spaces has not been up to par and to standard. So some of them are infrastructure that was left by the colonial years back, and there's not been much improvement. Yet the same spaces, through the free primary education and all that, have a lot of pressures on them. So fundamental in terms of this amount of the space, the school was designed for what number of students and how many are you having now?
Okay.
That is really the tragedy of the
Yeah.
mega story.
Yes.
Yes.
As we conclude, is there anything that you'd like to give out as a parting shot, or?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think even to government in terms of just the education sector, I'm happy there's been a lot of refocus into that in terms of invigorating the curriculum with a new one that's more forward thinking in a sense.
Yes.
But really we must invest in our children.
Yes.
We must invest in our human resource. As Kenyans, that's what we've been known for. That's the legacy of the late president who has just passed on.
Yes.
So we must never lose that stuff that we have, and
Yeah.
we must invest in education. We must build the schools, build the
Absolutely.
schools, build the schools, build
Absolutely.
the schools. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Delighted
you.
to have had you on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
And there you have it from the founder of Kyoto School and also the architect. Up next, we've got the billboards and the materials profile thereon after. Stay tuned. AAD Real Estate welcomes you to Ambra Heights Show House Open Day on 29th of February and 1st March along Kikambala Road in Kilaleshwa. Remember, you can book any of their properties and get up to 1 million shillings off. For more details, visit www.aad.ke.
Nebo Gardens is a prime land by Almond Estates, centrally located between Ngong Town. It touches the Ngong Susu Road and the Greater Southern Bypass. Nebo Gardens is located within the urban growth boundary, and the recent bid for the government to make the area a controlled special economic zone has greatly influenced the return on investment. With rich red soil and away from the congestion of the city, Nebo Gardens is prime for both settlement and agriculture. The plots come with a perimeter fence, a gate, borehole water on site, electricity connection, well-graded internal 9-meter access roads, and a common area. Get yours today at 500,000 Kenya shillings for an eighth of an acre, inclusive of transference fee and conveyance fee. You can contact us on 0769 737 454.
Now, we've clarified that design plays a major role in safety within schools. What about materials that have been used to build? Could the impact be lesser in the case of an accident, perhaps? Let's talk to Jeremy, find out from the product specification expert. How are you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Welcome to Property Focus.
Thank you, nice to be here.
Excellent. So how can your choice of building materials enhance your safety in a building?
Well, if you look at the different areas in the building,
Yes.
you have your wet areas, you have your public areas, and you have your private areas.
Okay.
If we use schools specifically, you have your bathrooms. You cannot put extremely smooth things in a wet area, especially with children. Children have energy for days.
For days.
So if you put in, say for example, like if you put in one of the slippery floor tiles,
Yes.
that is definitely going to cause accidents. So for areas like bathrooms, you need to take into account the type of flooring. Is it non-slip? If somebody was to run in there and trip on water, would they fall? As far as the floor goes, the floor will be a hard surface. So if a child falls, if a grown-up falls, there's nothing that will reduce the impact, unless of course you put cotton wool on the floors, which is impossible.
Which is impossible.
So depending on the area, you have to take into account the specific requirement for that area. If it's a wet area, it has to be a non-slip surface. If it is a high traffic area, it has to be something that can survive or is durable enough to survive in the high traffic areas.
So Jeremy, in schools, then how can you being an expert, how can one enhance, the safety environs where children play and learn from?
I think the mistake that most people make is when they're doing, so this is my personal opinion as a casual observer, the mistake that most people make when they're building schools is they're not building an environment, they're building an institution. So it's basically the gate and the walls. But what they don't take into account is these are kids. When we were kids, we used to run from end to end
Without socks, without
shoes,
on.
without socks.
Yeah.
We were free. So the one thing that most people should do when they're for schools.
Yes.
Create an environment where the child can run or the child can play. You won't stop them from getting hurt. That's a given. But make it in a way that if they get hurt, it's not a detrimental sort of damage.
Okay.
Like grass, make big open fields for the kids. In the classroom, reduce the sharp edges, put rounded edges. Lighting. Reduce on artificial light, focus more on a lot of natural light. Because if you bring up a kid in artificial light, it's not the same thing as when we used to play outside.
With the natural light.
With the natural light.
Yeah.
Then also the floors. Make it safe, not only for the kids but also for the grown-ups. Because you have teachers, like if you're wearing your high heel shoes or if you're wearing your brand new designer smooth-soled feet,
Yeah.
even if you're not a child, those are the sort of flaws that even as a grown-up will take you out.
Yeah.
So take into account, if you are a child, what would you be prone to do?
Yeah.
And what sort of environment would it be safe for
Yeah.
you as a kid to play in?
Correct.
So make it like soft landings here and there. If you have more than one story, is the grills big enough for a kid to stick their head through?
Yeah.
If so, should you reduce it? Is it something that a child can climb over? If not, how are you going to stop them from doing that? So don't make it a prison, but also make it child-friendly at the same time.
Excellent. So Jeremy, tell us, are there any collaborative efforts that institutions such as yourselves are taking to enhance safety?
Personally, we as CTM, there are a few projects we were involved in where we actually donated tiles to certain schools and also sanitary fittings. But we also have a lot of clients that are schools. And when they come, we normally advise them on what they need to do to fit in for mostly their wet areas.
Okay.
So they come and they buy their sanitary fittings, tiles and everything from us. And we tend to advise them on what is the best fit in those certain areas.
Okay. Excellent. Parting shot?
My parting shot would be, children need our protection. It might not be everywhere, it might not be all the time, but the little things that we can do for our children will make me feel a lot better. If I was to take my child to a school and I knew that the washrooms, the child cannot slip and fall. If I knew around the swimming pool area, my child cannot be running, slip and fall in the swimming pool. If I knew the classrooms are well lit and they're not struggling to read, if I knew the environment gives them enough room to play and express themselves, I will feel happy leaving my child in school. But if you focus more on the business aspect of the school instead of growing the child, we'll be breeding robots. We won't be breeding human beings. So my advice, invest in the child. Let them be a child. You're only a child once in your life.
True. Excellent. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Thank you.
And there you had it from Property Focus. Invest in your child, invest in your tiles. Thank you. Today's conversations were thoroughly exciting, and we hope that you enjoyed learning about these core issues as I did. Well, I believe history shall not repeat itself, and collaborative efforts by the authorities and industry players will ensure that children are in safe school environments. Property Focus will continue to bring you a completely new look at property every Sunday, right here, same place, same time. Until then, God bless you all and take care. I'm your host, Peter Ngigi.